regarding this cycle. So you have to choose the statement which is not correct. So statement 1 or option A is saying that local excess of phosphate in water can cause lack of algae. While algae use up all the oxygen present in the water, as a result, other aquatic animals die. Okay. Now option 2 is other animals that play important role in phosphorus cycle are seabirds. Statement 3 is fish manure or guano is rich in phosphorus, and thus seabirds are bringing this phosphorus back from the sea to the land. And statement D is, or option D is, phosphorus is an important component of cell wall, DNA and RNA, ATP. Okay. So now let's see the answer. Here, first thing is that if you have any idea about, let's say, the eutrophication, so basically, wherein what happens is that whenever there is excess of nutrition, or you can say excess of nutrients, in that case, what happens is that there is this situation of algae bloom. Okay. So when we are talking about these nutrients can be nitrogen or phosphate or phosphorus. Okay. So basically, because of the excess of these nutrients, there will be algae bloom. Now this option A says that the excess of phosphate can cause lack of algae. So that statement itself is incorrect because the concept of eutrophication says otherwise. Okay. So you have to choose the not correct option. So statement A is your not correct. Now all options are correct. So you can go through these options and you can remember that. Okay. Now coming to the explanation part, here you can say this is the phosphorus cycle which is given over here. So basically, when we are talking about phosphorus cycle, here is you can simply say that it is an exchange of phosphorus or related you can say phosphates etc. within the water bodies, land, living organisms and the biotic and abiotic components. Okay, so basically what is happening over here is that there are sedimentary rocks. When these rocks are weathering, and because of leaching or runoff etc., they will get into the water reservoirs, and then these water can be used by the plants and animals. Ultimately, when these plants and animals are dying, then that particular phosphate will go again to the soil, and because of various circulations and surface leaking etc., this will go into the deep sea as a sediment. Ultimately, because of the mineralization or the tectonic activities, or it will take millions of years, it will again become a rock, and this is how phosphate cycle or phosphorus cycle will work. Okay. Now, when we are talking about this particular step wherein we say that there is a sedimentary rock and which will weather. Okay, so how that will happen? So what happens is that when a rock is brought into contact with water which contains phosphate, or you can say especially some kind of acid is there. So obviously, because of which there will be a corrosion related activity over there, and rocks will start breaking into small pieces, or you can say that there will be a disintegration of rock. Ultimately, these small pieces are nothing but the soil. Okay, and now the soil is used by the autotrophs. Autotrophs are the, you can say, organisms which are generating their own food. Okay, so that is basically your plants they are talking about. So autotrophs are basically plants. Okay, and there can be some exceptions, but autotrophs take this phosphorus from the soil and use it in variety of ways. Similarly, these animals obtain it from the plants. Okay, and then when we are talking about some fungus, they come up with some kind of symbiotic relations in the roots of the plant. So this is how phosphorus cycle works. Okay. Then when we are talking about the eutrophication, which we have said that what is the local excess of phosphate can do to the water body. So basically, whenever there is excess of nutrients, okay, so whenever nutrient load is increasing, because of which what will happen is that whenever there is more amount of nitrogen and phosphorus, you can say that then there will be a lot of phytoplanktons, then there will be zooplanktons, then there will be plants and fishes, etc. So basically, you can say that there will be a bloom. Other than that, when we are talking about these algae are nothing but whenever there is this bloom, or you can say whenever there is excess of nutrients, because of which these algae will start increasing their population, and there will be an algae bloom, or you can see that on the surface of the water body there will be these algae which are surviving over here. Okay, now because of this excess of algae over here, you can see that the sun rays, okay, will not penetrate inside this water body, and ultimately the plant at the bed, or aquatic animals at the bed, they will start suffocating and they will die. Okay, now other thing is that these algae are basically the organism which are actually using this oxygen. Okay, now if there is an algae bloom, ultimately they will use excess of oxygen. Okay, when we are talking about this particular plants which are died inside of this particular water body because of the lack of sunlight, or you can say because of lack of oxygen, ultimately they will start decomposing. Now when we are talking about these decomposers also require oxygen. So once there is a dead plant or animal over there, so because of the requirement, or you can say biological oxygen demand will increase. Okay, ultimately you can say that because of this all algae blooms or the excess of the nutrition, what is happening is that the biological oxygen demand of that particular body is going beyond the demand they can survive, or you can say beyond the oxygen they can supply. So ultimately what will happen is that this particular water ecosystem will collapse. Okay, so that is what eutrophication is. Okay, so local excess of phosphate can cause growth of algae in water. Algae can use up all the oxygen in water and kill other aquatic animals. This is called eutrophication. Okay, so ultimately here you can say that the relation is some kind of proportional, like whenever there is nutrients on which are increasing, then there will be algae population which will also increase. Okay, so that is what first statement was. That is why the first statement was wrong. Okay, now coming to the question number 2. Consider the following statement with respect to the biogeochemical cycle. With the name itself, it is here bio, geo, and chemical cycles. Okay, now coming to the statement 1. Biogeochemical cycles involve movement of various elements ranging from abiotic to living components of the biosphere. So basically, they are saying that they are these cycles are basically interaction of biotic as well as abiotic components. Okay. Now, statement 2, if we see, biogeochemical cycles can be classified as gaseous and sedimentary. Okay, so if we are talking about gaseous, then there will be some gases involved in that. When we are talking about sedimentary, then the earth's crust or land's part will be involved. Okay, so statement says that gaseous, in which air or oceans through evaporation are the collectors, and then sedimentary, in which the earth's crust is the collector. Okay, so this statement 1 is also true. Second statement is also true. Okay, now biogeochemical cycle exists in nature. That is true. Now moving forward, for the survival of the living component of a major ecosystem, there must be a continuous recycling of all the chemical elements that make up the living cells. So basically, what they are saying that all the chemical elements that can include your your nitrogen, that can include your phosphorus, oxygen. All these things are, so you can say the carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, all these elements are there. So a continuous recycling of these elements is necessary to make sure that life is going on the earth planet. Okay, so basically these three statements are correct. Option D would be the right answer. Now let's see what explanation says here. These are some example of biogeochemical cycle, or you can say this is how it works. This is your plants, then there will be animals as well. Okay, then this is your terrestrial ecosystem, then this is your water bodies, and then sun. Okay, so ultimately you can say that all the biotic as well as abiotic components like soil, water, etc., and biotic components which are living. Okay, so basically the interaction of these elements is considered as biogeochemical cycle. Here you can see that biogeochemical cycle refers to the natural process by which elements such as carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus move through living organisms, the atmosphere, oceans, and the earth's crust, sustaining life and maintaining ecological balance. Okay, so it is saying that to survive or to have a sustaining life, there is a need of a ecological balance which is maintained by such biogeochemical cycles. Okay, now here you can say in order for a living components of a major ecosystem to survive, there is a need of this continuous recycling, which is called biogeochemical cycles. Okay, now when we are talking about this particular chemical cycle, it is a natural pathway, which is obvious. These natural pathway through which these essential elements are basically rotating or recycling. Okay, now here elements flow in is in various form, that is from the abiotic component to biotic component. There are various forms through which it can happen. And when we are talking about the gaseous and the sedimentary classification, here gaseous in which air or ocean through evaporation are the collectors, and sedimentary in which the earth crust is the collector. Okay, so we have discussed this question. Now question number 3. R2 code of practice provides means to encourage adoption of which of the following? Okay, so there are some options given. Option A is environmentally sound practices in the electronic recycling industry. Okay, second is ecological management of wetland of international importance under Ramsar Convention. Then C is sustainable practice of cultivation of agriculture crops on degraded land. D is environmental impact assessment in exploiting of natural resources. Now when we are talking about R2 code of practice, okay, so now obviously these R2 signifies something. If you don't have any idea, just look at the keywords inside the options given. Okay, so when we are talking about R2, you have to see something which is related to R2. Okay, now environmentally sound practices in the electronics recycling industry. Now we can say that there is a recycling. Okay, so we can hold this option or you can consider this option. Now second option is related to your ecological management of the wetlands. So they are talking about wetlands over here. And second is Ramsar Convention. There is a possibility of this thing. Now third statement is sustainable practice of cultivating agriculture crops on the degraded lands. Okay, so yes, this can be a true, but if you have no idea, then by logic you can say that there is no use of this, or you can say no connection to R2. Now environmental impact assessment in exploiting natural resources. Okay, so that is also not very well connected. So we can say that we can eliminate these two, and now we can focus on these two. Now when we are talking about this code of practices, okay, when we are talking about this Ramsar Convention, we have not read about it, this code of practices somewhere. But when we are talking about this electronic recycling, there can be a chance that this can be true. Okay, so I would tell you that option A is the right answer because there is this practice which has been adopted by the government. So let's talk about that. Okay, option A is the right answer. Environmentally sound practices in electronics recycling industry. Now let's see what is R2 code of practices. Okay, so basically R2 stands for responsible cycling. Okay, so as I told you, this R2 stands for something, and you have to figure out what it stands for. Okay, now it is a standard created by the Sustainable Electronics Recycling International, that is SERI. Okay, and it is specifically for the electronics recycling industry. So when we are talking about our electronic gadgeted device, etc., you have this laptop, you have TV, you have a mobile phone, etc., they have circuits. Okay, and ultimately when they are of no use, that they will generate some kind of waste. Okay, now here we are talking about this recycling of that particular waste. Okay, now here you can say an R2 certified company will be able to assure its customers that it takes appropriate measures at its facility to protect the environment, workers, public health, and data security. So basically they are talking about the recycling, because ultimately if you do not recycle, it will harm the environment. Okay, these are hazardous elements. That is why recycling, or you can say safe disposal of these things are very important. So ultimately, this is to protect the environment. We have this code that is R2. Okay, responsible recycling. Okay. Now, when we are talking about such companies, they will definitely have some kind of benefit, because when you are giving some kind of certificate attached to it, there will be some benefits, etc. Okay. So such company will benefit from the improving their operating systems and processes, gaining higher profit margins and additional markets share through the status of conferring the certification. Okay. So that is for your electronics waste recycling industry. That is why this responsible recycling is a code word, or you can say the keyword over here. Okay. Now moving forward to the question number 4. Magnetite particles, which are considered responsible for the neurodegenerative problems, are produced as environmental pollutants from which of the following activity? Okay, so there are 4 to 5 activities are given: car brakes, motor vehicle engines, microwave stoves used in home, power plants, and telephone lines. So when we are talking about these particular things here, when we are talking about these magnetite particles, these are generated through the emissions, or you can say any kind of activity which is happening over there. So here when we are talking about these car brakes, motor vehicle engines, microwave stoves used in the homes, these power plants, telephone lines, all of these are the activities through which these magnetite particles are basically releasing. These are basically nanoparticles, and when we are talking about this nanoparticle, these are so small in size that we cannot see with our naked eyes. But whenever these activities are happening, they are getting you can say released. Okay, so option D would be your right answer. Now let's see the explanation. Nanoparticles of the magnetite and the iron oxides are related to air pollution, have been observed in human brain tissues. Now, in the human brain tissues, these magnetite particles or nanoparticles of magnetite has been present. This is research by Oxford University. So, in this particular research, what they are saying is that these nanoparticles, which are generated artificially because of air pollution, they are ultimately being accumulated inside the human brain tissues. Okay. Other than them, there are certain other you can say metals, just like nickel, cobalt, platinum. These are also found in the brain tissues. Okay. So the nanoparticle of these metals are also found inside the brain tissues. So these are causing some kind of neurodegenerative disorders, just like dementia, Alzheimer's, epilepsy, etc. Okay, so these are basically having some, you can say, harmful effect on the brain. Okay, here we are talking about magnetite particles. These are mainly produced as pollutants from the high temperature fossil fuel combustion sources. Okay, that can be your coal, that can be your natural gas, etc. Okay, now power stations, telephone lines, manufacturing processes, vehicle engines, household microwave stoves, and recently we have seen that this can also be produced from the friction of the vehicular brakes. Okay, so that's it, that all of these, you can say, activities are releasing such magnetite particles. Okay, now moving further, question number 5. In the context of solving pollution problems, what are the advantage of bioremediation technology? Here we are talking about bioremediation. It means that there will be some kind of organism which are attached to it, organism which are related to it. Okay, and remediation means that we are trying to find a remedy. Okay, so it is a technique to clean pollution by enhancing the biodegradation process occurring in the nature. So basically what they are using is, in this particular process, as an organism, they are basically using the microorganism. Okay, now these microorganisms are useful in the biodegradation. Bioremediation means that using this microorganism for the biodegradation of the pollutants. Okay, so basically any contaminants containing metals like cadmium, lead can be easily and completely treated by bioremediation using microorganisms. Now when we are talking about this particular word which has been used over here, that is easily and completely. Now because of this particular thing, this statement is incorrect, because no doubt these microorganisms has these properties. Okay, but they cannot go for 100% bioremediation, or this is not an easy process certainly. Okay, so that is why this statement is incorrect. Now genetic engineering can be used to create specially designed microorganism for bioremediation. Now this is a generic statement which we can say that yes, that can be done if we can change some kind of gene in that particular microorganism, and then microorganism can target a particular pollutant like lead or cadmium, then it can be done. So we can say that 1 and 3 is basically your right answer. Option C would be your right answer. Okay, now let's see what is bioremediation. As I told you, this is a method wherein waste management, or you can say it is a waste management technique. Okay, in which microorganisms are used to decompose the pollutant. As I told you, microorganism has this function, that is they are going for the decompositions. Okay, so basically here they are decomposing the pollutants. Okay, now ability of microorganism to convert pollutants into less toxic or non-toxic substance. Okay, less toxic or non-toxic substance, ultimately that can be increased by the genetic engineering. They are saying that there is a capability which we can increase by genetic engineering. Now here they are saying that less toxic. So when we have used that word, that is completely and easily, so we can say that that is not possible yet. Okay, now recently microorganisms that can decompose heavy metals like cadmium and lead through bioremediation have been discovered, but till now easy and complete bioremediation of all heavy metals is not been possible. Okay, so that is why that statement was incorrect. Okay, now we can move further. Question number 6. Which of the following atmospheric gases is generally considered in calculating the air quality index in the cities of our country? Okay, so when we are talking about this air quality index, there are 8 pollutants. Okay, so they are using these 8 pollutants. These 8 pollutants are basically your particulate matter 2.5, then PM10, then nitrogen dioxide, then we have sulfur dioxide, we have carbon monoxide, we have ozone, we have ammonia, and we have lead. Okay, so these are the 8 pollutants which are being tracked under this air quality index. Okay, when we are talking about carbon dioxide, then carbon dioxide is not part of this particular list. Okay, so when we eliminate this particular carbon dioxide, then you will come up with the option 2, that is basically option B, 2, 3 and 4, carbon monoxide, nitrogen dioxide and sulfur dioxide. Methane is also not part of this list. Okay, so option B is your right answer. So when we are talking about the National Air Quality Index, it was launched by the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change in 2014. It is part of your Swachh Bharat mission. It has 6 categories like good air index, satisfactory, moderately, poor, very poor and severe, and they are having 8 pollutant or agents. This is basically PM10, PM2.5, NO2, SO2, CO, O3, NH3 and PB. Okay, which we have already discussed. It does not include CO2 and methane. Okay, so please remember that. Now we can move forward with the next question. Question number 7. Due to the inconsistent, disorganized proposal of old and used computer or their spare parts, which of the following are released into environment as e-waste? Okay, now let's see. Beryllium, cadmium, chromium, heptachlor, mercury, lead and plutonium. Okay, so basically these are certain elements which are given in front of you. Now you have to decide that which can generate e-waste. Okay, now the trick here is that the plutonium. Okay, if you have any idea what is plutonium, then you will be able to identify the answer very easily. Okay, plutonium is basically a radioactive element. So when we are talking about radioactive elements, which we will not use in our laptops, etc. So that is why we can eliminate this plutonium. Okay, so if you eliminate the 7-1, option B would be a right answer. Okay, that is one thing. Other than that, also I will tell you one more thing here is that if you have any idea about heptachlor, heptachlor is a pesticide. So obviously a pesticide will not be used inside our electronics industry. So if you eliminate the 4 as well, then also you will get your answer. Okay, now here are certain things you can go through it, because these are the goods which can generate e-waste like beryllium, cadmium, chromium, mercury, lead. The more than what can generate e-waste, the question was about what cannot generate e-waste. Okay, that is heptachlor, it is a pesticide, and then plutonium, which is a radioactive substance. Now we can move further with the question number 8. Consider the following statement given in the context of international agreement MARPOL. Okay, with the name it is clear, marine pollution, made for the prevention of marine pollution. Okay, it was adopted by the International Maritime Organization in 2010. Okay, then second statement is this agreement is related to the prevention of increasing air pollution by ships. Okay, now this, when you are having a look at it, you can say that it is to fight the marine pollution. Okay, so that can also be you can say option over here. Okay, just don't get confused by the increasing air pollutant, because ultimately these are ships which are generating it. Okay, then now India is signatory signatory country to this treaty. Okay, so this statement is true. Both 2 and 3 is true, because when we are talking about statement 1, it is incorrect because it was actually signed in 1973 and it was implemented somewhere in 1983. Okay, so basically that is why this statement was false. Okay, so option B would be your right answer. To prevent and increase the marine pollution by the ships, here you can say that Marpol Agreement was signed by the International Maritime Organization (IMO) in 1973, and it came into force from October 1983. Okay, now as I told you, this agreement was related to damage to the sea, water, and ecology due to dumping, leakage from the oil tankers, and any other incidents which are included over there. And in 2005, air pollution by ship was also included. Okay, now India is also one of the signatory country. Okay, now moving to the next question: which of the following statements is or are correct regarding water pollution and its treatment? Now, widespread occurrence of blue-green algae is used as a bioindicator to indicate or to detect the level of water pollution. As I told you, whenever there is this rise of algae, we can say that there is pollution. Okay, because of the algae bloom or rise in the population of algae, there are certain things which happens in the water body, which we have already discussed in the question number 1. So I will not go into detail of that. So here you can say that if there is a widespread occurrence of the algae, then you can say that water body is polluted. So that can be used as an indicator. So this statement is correct. Now, to remove temporary hardness of water, chlorination is done. When we are talking about temporary hardness, it is basically a hardness because of the bicarbonates of calcium and magnesium. Okay, that can be reduced by simple process of boiling. Okay, this chlorination is not required. When we are talking about chlorination, that is required in when you want to remove certain microorganism or the pathogens from the water. For that, chlorination is done. So the statement second is incorrect. Option A would be your right answer. Okay. So here you can say that large increase in the number of the algae increases the nitrates and the phosphates, which is basically indicates the water pollution. Okay. Second thing is temporary hardness. As I told you, these are the bicarbonates of calcium and magnesium that can be removed by the boiling the water. Okay. When we are talking about this permanent hardness, that is because of the chlorides and the sulfates of the calcium, magnesium. Okay. That there can be nitrates as well. So chloride, sulfates, or the nitrates of the calcium and magnesium. Okay. And that will require more than just boiling. There will be certain procedure to do that. Okay. Now, when we are talking about chlorination of the wastewater, it will be used to disinfect or separate the pathogenic organisms like bacteria, virus, protozoa, etc. from the water. Okay. I hope this is clear. Now, last question, that is question number 10. Which of the following are primary pollutants? Oxides of the carbon and nitrogen, oxides of sulfur, ozone, and peroxyacetyl nitrate. Okay, there are certain codes given which we have to see which of them are primary pollutants. So when we are talking about primary pollutants, these are the pollutants which are directly being released in the atmosphere. Okay, directly. And when we are talking about these secondary pollutants, so secondary pollutants are basically the pollutants which are generated by the reactions of these primary pollutants. Okay, so ultimately when we are talking about these primary pollutants, you can say that carbon dioxide can be your primary pollutant, nitrogen dioxide can be your primary pollutant, sulfur dioxide can be your primary pollutant. Okay, so 1 and 2 is correct. When we are talking about ozone, ozone is not a primary pollutant, but because it forms after the reactions. Okay, so here we can say that ozone is not part of it. Okay, so obviously option 1 and 2 would be your right answer. Okay, now here you can see there are certain primary pollutants. As I told you, they enter the atmosphere directly through human activities. Secondary pollutants are the one they produce when the primary pollutant react with the common atmospheric compounds. Then oxide of carbon, nitrogen, sulfur, hydrocarbons, particulate matters, these are basically your primary pollutants. Then ozone and peroxyacetyl nitrate, these are secondary pollutants. Okay, so I hope this is clear. Now there is a question for your practice. There is a group of concept which is given in front of you, and then there are certain facts related to that particular concept are given. Okay, so now you have to match it correctly.